The restaurant was alive with warmth that night. The low hum of conversation mixed with the soft clinking of glasses, and the faint scent of garlic bread floated through the air. Families laughed, couples leaned close, and waiters weaved through tables with practiced ease. But the peace shattered in a single instant. Chairs screeched against the polished wood, gasps rose like waves, and suddenly 3 men stood towering over a table in the center. Their voices weren't just loud, they carried a kind of venom that made the room tremble. At that table sat a CEO, well-dressed, clearly important, and visibly out of place in this modest restaurant. Everyone knew his face, some admired him, others envied him. But admiration vanished when danger entered. The 3 men had cornered him like wolves circling prey. One slammed a fist so hard on the table that silverware rattled. Another grabbed the CEO by the collar, shaking him violently. The third stood close, his stance wide, his smirk daring anyone to interfere. Fear spread through the diners like a disease. People froze. Heads turned away. Not a single person moved to help. Except one. John Miller. A single dad. A Navy veteran. A man who had walked into this restaurant not looking for trouble, but for peace, a simple night with his daughter. His little girl, Emily, sat across from him, her bright eyes wide with confusion and fear. She was only 10, too young to understand why grown men behaved like predators, too young to know that not everyone in the world had good intentions. John felt her tiny hand grab his sleeve, clutching it with silent desperation. And in that moment, John knew 2 things. 1, if he stood by and did nothing, those men might ruin more than just a meal, they could ruin a life. And 2, his daughter was watching. She would carry this memory forever. He couldn't let her remember her father as a man who turned away. John rose to his feet. His movement was calm, deliberate. He didn't puff his chest or shout to gather attention. Instead, his voice came out low, steady, and powerful. That's enough. The room fell into silence. Every eye turned to him. The first attacker sneered. What did you say, old man? John didn't flinch. I said that's enough. Let him go. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she watched her father step forward. She knew him as the man who braided her hair clumsily before school, who packed her lunches with silly notes, who tucked her in every night. But now, in front of her eyes, he was something else. Something more. He wasn't just her dad, he was a soldier again. The first man lunged. A clumsy swing meant to intimidate. But John wasn't intimidated. With precise, practiced movement, he sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted. The attacker yelped as his own momentum sent him crashing to the ground. The second attacker came from behind, reaching for John's shoulders. Without turning, John shifted his weight, dropped low, and in one smooth motion sent the man flipping over his back onto the floor. The third froze. He could see it in John's eyes, the calm of someone who had seen worse, survived worse, and wasn't afraid. You want to try? John asked, his voice sharp as steel. The third man backed away, pulling his groaning friends with him. Within seconds, the 3 stormed out of the restaurant, muttering curses they didn't dare to act on. The restaurant erupted into applause. Strangers clapped, cheered, and whispered in disbelief. Some pulled out their phones, already recording. But John wasn't basking in attention. He turned to Emily first, kneeling to meet her eyes. You okay, sweetheart? She nodded, though her small hands still trembled. Daddy, you were like a superhero. John smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. No, baby. I'm just your dad. And sometimes, dads have to be brave. The CEO, shaken but unharmed, stood up slowly. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his composure cracked. He stared at John with wide eyes. You saved me. Why? Why would you risk yourself for someone you don't even know? John's answer was simple. He looked down at Emily, then back at the CEO. Because she's watching. And I want her to remember that when you see something wrong, you don't look away. The words hit the room harder than any punch. People didn't just clap, they stood. They cheered. And Emily's eyes shone with pride. Later that night, as the restaurant emptied, the CEO approached John again. "Mr. Miller, I owe you more than my safety. Tell me, what do you do for a living?" John hesitated, embarrassed. "I fix cars. Just trying to keep things together for my daughter." The CEO studied him for a long moment before handing him a card. "Come see me Monday. A man like you shouldn't be hidden in a garage. I think we can find a place for you at my company." John tucked the card into his pocket without a word. He had been offered many things before: pity, sympathy, hollow promises. But something about this man's tone told him this was different. That night, Emily fell asleep against his shoulder in the car ride home, whispering, "Daddy, you're my hero." But John lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he truly deserved those words. Monday came. John walked into the CEO's office building: polished floors, tall glass windows, suits everywhere. He felt out of place. People gave him side glances, some even smirked at his worn-out jacket and calloused hands. The CEO greeted him warmly and offered him a position in corporate security. The pay was better than the garage. It promised stability for Emily. But it also came with new challenges. The hours were long. The training was grueling. John doubted himself constantly. He was older than most recruits, rusty compared to their fresh energy. Some mocked him, whispering that he was just the charity case the CEO brought in out of guilt. And worse, Emily missed him. She would wait up at night, sometimes falling asleep on the couch with her homework in her lap, just to catch a few minutes with him. The guilt ate away at John. But every time he thought of quitting, he remembered her face that night in the restaurant. The way she had looked at him, not just with love, but with admiration. He couldn't throw that away. He pushed himself harder, studied longer, stayed up at night practicing drills. Slowly, the same discipline that carried him through Navy years carried him through corporate halls. And Emily adapted too. She would leave him little notes in his lunch bag: "You can do this, Daddy." She became his anchor, his reason to keep moving. Months turned into a year. John rose through the ranks, earning respect not because of the CEO's favor, but because of his unwavering integrity. He stopped being the mechanic with pity promotion and became the man everyone trusted. His colleagues sought his guidance. His daughter blossomed, proud to say, "My dad works to protect people." But John's greatest achievement wasn't the promotions or the paycheck. It was the lesson he had etched into his daughter's heart, that true strength is not measured by power, but by the courage to stand up when it matters most. One evening, years later, as John and Emily sat on their porch under the stars, she whispered, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to help people, just like you." John smiled, his arm wrapping around her shoulders. "You already are, sweetheart. Every time you're kind, every time you're brave, you're already changing the world." The night was quiet. The battles of the past seemed far away. And in that moment, John realized his life, filled with scars and struggles, had led to something beautiful. And that is the story of John Miller, a single dad, a Navy veteran, who turned one terrifying night into a lifelong lesson of courage. He didn't just save a CEO. He saved a room full of people from fear. He saved his daughter from doubt. And he saved himself from believing he was just a man surviving, because that night, he proved he was a man living with purpose. So I'll ask you, the viewers, if you were in that restaurant, what would you have done? Would you have stepped in like John or stayed back in fear? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice matters. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to my channel. Be kind always. Because in the end, it's not money, power, or fame that makes us heroes, it's kindness, courage, and the choices we make when the world needs us most.